Professor Dror, you're based in India since, I believe, 2007. What is the relevance of microinsurance in India in particular?
India's got everything one needs to develop microinsurance, to prove that it exists, to prove that it's relevant, to prove that it is can make a huge difference. India, first of all, has a very large informal sector. Most of the population is in the informal sector, and there is a huge incentive to remain in the informal sector. Secondly, most of the population is rural. 70 or odd % of the population in India lives in villages. And many people who are urban also will always tell you which village they come from. They can trace their village, and this is very ancestral, very important. The other issue is that India has failed, not for lack of trying, to create insurance penetration through commercial schemes. India has commercial schemes. India has the largest in the world life insurance corporation. But the presence of insurance in the life of people does not stand out. When most people have a problem, they think, who can I turn to help me? Who are my friends? Who's my family? Who may have the resources or the connection to help me sort out the problem? They don't think insurance. They do not see the risk as tied to a financial instrument. They see tied to a social instrument. If you want to mobilize social groups, informal social groups, in order to create financial inclusion, leverage the resources and the ability of entire groups, there is no better place than India. Of course, there are other places that have the same profile: Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Cambodia, Laos, and others, and as well as countries in Africa. But India, it's one country, it's a huge country, but in fact it has so many different biotopes. You go to the east and you have a whole big tribal belt. Each group sees the world in a different setting, in a different way. You go to the north, it's an agricultural community, but again, the differences are very, very important. And they are not only exposed to the risks of health, but they also have increasingly very severe exposure to climate change related risks that influence their livelihood, their agriculture, livestock, everything, supply of water, quality of water, everything that they have been counting on for time immemorial is gradually becoming a risk. These people, they may be poor, they may be illiterate, many be also innumerate, they may have no experience with insurance, but they're very smart, they're very savvy, they have a lot of knowledge which can be mobilized in order to inculcate new concepts of insurance that they have not had until now, not because they didn't have exposure to risk, but because they were not offered insurance in a manner that is suitable to their reality, to their level of understanding, to their specific risk exposure. They don't need necessarily coverage for Alzheimer's disease. They need coverage for snake bites. They need coverage for immediate issues that they face all the time. If we offer them the wrong kind of products for the wrong kind of issues and for the wrong kind of price, clearly they would reject insurance. But they didn't reject insurance per se. They know they're exposed to risk. And therefore, working with such people in India is a very enriching and a very enlightening process from which we learn a lot and from which we can then expand the knowledge, the insights, and take it to other places.
Professor Dror, we are grateful and fortunate that you've chosen to do your work here in India. Can you share a little bit about what your plans are for scaling microinsurance all across India?
From niche to mass is, of course, the next mantra. But you can't go to mass before you have proven a very robust prototype. and you need to prove it to all the skeptics in the world. There are many. The insurance industry has a way, a business model of doing its business. It is very keen on the business, but not so keen on changing the business model. And that business model doesn't work with rurals, doesn't work in the informal sector, does not work with people who are maybe focused differently than the products that are being offered. So we've had to develop, through trial and error, a robust prototype. See it not only accepted by the rural, but also inculcate the notion that this is not based on charity. There is a relationship between what people pay and what they can expect that insurance to actually compensate. That takes some time. It has taken us a few years to develop the model, find out its weaknesses, correct them, go back and do something that works. And now we're starting to see those schemes become financially and operationally sustainable. We were not able to show that a few years ago. When I started with this, more than a decade ago, I started mainly from the conceptual point of view. And everybody I talked to said to me, it sounds like a good idea, but where can I go and have a look? Where can I see? Where does it actually work? Now, when the skeptics ask me, where does it actually work? I can send them. There are addresses, there are places, there are villages. They don't always go there because it's very far away. But the fact that we have those demonstration sites and that people of their own initiative want to join when they were sitting on the fence for 3 years or 2 years to see how the first movers were actually benefiting. When this is now our reality, we have a very strong prototype. Now, to scale that prototype requires funds, that's clear. It requires the funding, not so much for the premium, because the premium is paid by people, but for the technical assistance that these schemes do need, and they will need for the first 3 to 5 years. This is the responsibility of donors, of the international community, of governments. We are working with donors who have been interested in our model, who believed in it before we could show them results. Now that we have results, that responsibility really gravitates to a different kind of donors, governments, state governments, and others who would like to see real solutions on the ground in a manner that works. As soon as we reach the situation that we've got enough support from those sources, we can scale to virtually any size. We've got the training modules all worked out and tested. We've got the implementation process. We've got the whole thing ISO certified to make sure that this is the best quality management standard in the world. We've got the team that knows both the concepts and the people. And we've got endless amounts of demand. The limiting factor today is donor support for technical assistance, not demand. There is no end to the demand we could respond to. And in addition, we can expand beyond health insurance, which has been our first domain of activity, and which is virtually universal. Everybody has that risk, to many other risks related to climate change. We're doing some interesting and innovative work on agricultural insurance, making it much more interesting for farmers than what they can find on the commercial side. Livestock insurance, 20 to 30% of agriculture is livestock related. So it's a very big chunk of livelihood, but we need good solutions for it. Again, the limiting factor today is neither demand, nor technical knowledge, nor proof of concept. We are now ready to go from niche to mass, and the only limiting factor is the large-scale support for the technical assistance that will phase out after 3 to 5 years. So my answer to you is, tell me how big the ticket will support, and I can multiply within 5 minutes and tell you how many lives, in how many regions, and in how many languages we can implement.
Thank you, Professor Dror. That was a fascinating discussion about microinsurance and how to create demand for insurance and the relevance of microinsurance in India and other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maney. This is a pleasure to talk to you. And just to say, it's a pleasure to work in India. India is a very challenging country in many ways, but it's also a very invigorating country. And the same is true for the base of the pyramid. Anybody who's not had this experience should make every effort to try to work with people who are inventive, innovative, curious, challenging, but who are the real future of this society.